Most leaders that I talk to think that they've hit their ceiling, but I want to tell you today, they haven't. And that distinction between a ceiling and a limit, that might be the most important thing that I say to you. So stay with me for the next few minutes. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. There's a season in leadership, and for a lot of men that I talk to, it hits somewhere in the 40s or the 50s where you start to notice a gap. This gap is between where you are and where the people around you seem to be going. It's between the skills that you built over decades and what the next season seems to require. It's between the version of yourself that served you so well for so long and the version that you need to be right now. And the story that we tell ourselves in that gap, it's almost always the same. I've peaked. My best work is behind me. The church has moved on without me. I missed my window. I've heard that story in different words from more capable leaders than I can count. And I want to push back on it. Not with encouragement, not with a pep talk, but with a distinction that I think changes the entire frame. Here's that distinction. A ceiling and a limit are not the same thing. And for most leaders, they're treating them as if they are. First, a ceiling is fixed. It's built into the structure. It peaks at a certain point, and after that, the only direction is down. If you've hit your ceiling, that's it. There's no discussion to have, no work to do. You've gotten everything out of yourself that there is to get. But a limit is different. A limit is where your current skills, your current habits, your current develop ends. Not permanently, not definitively, just right now with what you've built so far. And here's what's true about limits that isn't true about ceilings. Limits move. They respond to growth. They expand when you do the work. When a leader tells me that they've hit their ceiling, what they've almost always actually hit is their current limit. And those are not the same thing. One is a verdict, the other is an invitation. Let me tell you what I've actually watched happen and what doesn't happen with leaders in this season. I've watched worship pastors in their mid-40s spend a few years feeling invisible in a new church, a new city, new senior leadership, a new culture. The skills that have made them exceptional for the last 20 years really now just aren't translating the same way. They were doing the work, but not getting the traction. And the story that they tell themselves to believe, I had my run. What they've actually hit wasn't the ceiling. It was the edge of the current skill set in a new context. When we start being honest about that specific gap, not vague encouragement, not, you've got so much to offer, but here's exactly what the next season requires that you haven't built yet. That's when things begin to shift. Just 6 months of focused, deliberate development. Not to become a different person, but to become more fully yourself with new tools. I've also watched leaders do the exact opposite. Leaders who hit a limit, they called it a ceiling. And they just stopped. Not because they didn't have more to give, but because they confused a temporary edge with a permanent verdict. Those stories, they are a lot harder to watch. Not because of what they lost, but because of what they left on the table. I want you to hear this. The leaders who finish with the most fruitfulness, the most impact, the most sense that they gave everything that they had, they are rarely the most talented ones in the room. They're the ones who never stopped developing. They never stopped becoming. They kept treating their limits simply as information, not as final answers. So here's what I want to leave you. And I want to be direct about this because I really think it matters. If you're in a season where you've been feeling like your best days are behind you, I want you to ask yourself an honest question before you accept that story. Have I actually assessed where my limit currently is? Not in a vague, general sense, specifically. What are the exact skills that this next season requires? Where does my current capacity end? And what is the actual gap between where I am and where I need to be, and what it would take to close it? Most leaders are never that specific about those kinds of questions. They feel the frustration of the limit, they mistake it for a ceiling. They stop or they drift or they settle for a smaller version of who they were called to be. You can do something different. And the first step, it's always the same, an honest assessment. You can't close a gap that you haven't measured. I built a free self-assessment guide specifically for ministry leaders who are in this kind of season. It'll walk you through the 4 areas of capacity that matter the most and help you see clearly where your limit currently is. Not to condemn, not to overwhelm, just to see it honestly so that you can do something about it. The link is in the description. It's an online assessment. It'll take you about 20 minutes to go through the questions and maybe some reflections, and you'll get immediate feedback and also what some next steps might be for you. If this has resonated with you, I would ask you, share it with a leader that you know who might be in this season. Sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone that you care about is hand them a different frame for what they're carrying. I'll be back next week. We're going to talk about the relational ecosystem, the specific voices every leader needs in their life right now, and why most leaders are missing at least one of them. So until then, never stop becoming.